Hey everyone, I'm Mr. Willis, and welcome back to You Will Love AP Gov. Thanks for joining me for another video on one of the required foundational documents for AP US Government. Today's video is all about the Articles of Confederation, the first Constitution of the United States that established the nation's first system of government. If you're taking notes for your AP class or prepping for the AP exam, remember to click on the link below and download the free guided notebook page to make it easier to follow along. Let's get at it. The Articles of Confederation was the first Constitution of the United States, adopted in 1781 during the Revolutionary War. It established a loose alliance of the 13 original states, serving as a framework for national government until it was replaced by the U.S. Constitution in 1789. The Articles aimed to preserve the independence and sovereignty of the states while unifying them under a confederate system of government. A confederation is a political alliance of independent states that unite for a common purpose. With the trauma of British rule fresh in their minds, the newly independent states feared that any strong central authority could become just as oppressive as the government they had broken away from. So the goal of the Articles of Confederation was to unite the 13 sovereign states under a national government strong enough to coordinate the war effort, but not so strong that it could become tyrannical. While this may have seemed like a logical solution at the time, it quickly became evident that the government's lack of authority over national issues would pose significant challenges. The Articles of Confederation consisted of 13 separate articles which outlined the framework of the new government, including its powers, limitations, and the relationship between the states and the Confederation. Some of these articles are more important than others, so we'll focus on the more important ones in this video. From the very get-go, the founders wanted to make it clear with whom the power to govern rested, so Article 2 focuses on preserving the sovereignty of each of the individual states. Each state retains its sovereignty, freedom, and independence, and every power, jurisdiction, and right which is not by this confederation expressly delegated to the United States in Congress assembled. Article 2 emphasizes that under the Articles of Confederation, the states hold supreme authority over the central government and are the main holders of power. They were self-governing republics, each with full control over its own internal affairs, who had voluntarily entered into a cooperative relationship for a common cause. The framers also wanted to make it clear that the federal government's powers were limited to those explicitly granted by the states. If something wasn't clearly written in the Articles as a power of the national government, that power automatically remained with the states. This reflects the fear of centralized power and the belief in state supremacy that dominated American political thinking after the Revolution. Article 5 outlines the structure of the federal government, existing primarily as a single, unicameral legislative body known as the Confederation Congress. Unlike the government we have today, there was no executive branch to enforce laws and no judicial branch to interpret them. When it came to state representation in Congress, state population size was irrelevant. Article 5 states, in determining questions in the United States, in Congress assembled, each state shall have one vote. This meant that smaller states like Rhode Island or New Jersey had equal representation in Congress and therefore equal say in passing laws as larger states like Virginia or New York. Article 6 of the Articles of Confederation set limits on the powers of individual states in matters of foreign policy and military action. It prohibited any state from sending or receiving ambassadors, making treaties or alliances with foreign nations, or declaring war, except in cases of direct invasion or imminent threat without the consent of Congress. It also forbade states from maintaining peacetime armies or warships beyond what Congress deemed necessary and required all military ranks to be subordinate to the national government. This article aimed to ensure a unified national approach to diplomacy and defense, preventing states from acting independently in ways that could threaten the security or stability of the Union. If each state could act independently in matters of war and diplomacy, it could lead to confusion, conflicting treaties, or even wars that might drag the rest of the states into conflict. Article 9 outlined the limited powers of the federal government. The Congress retained the sole power to declare war, make peace, send and receive ambassadors, enter into treaties and alliances, and manage relations with Native American tribes. Congress also had the authority to coin money, set up a postal service, and regulate the value of currency. Congress could settle disputes between states and was also responsible for managing Western territories and admitting new states. Article 9 also stipulates that in order for the federal government to pass new laws, a supermajority of 9 out of 13 states had to agree. With each sovereign state acting in its own self-interest, it was natural that conflicts of opinion would occur, making decision-making and the legislative process extremely difficult. Furthermore, there were several key powers not expressly granted to the Congress in Article 9 and were therefore automatically reserved for the states. Most important of these, the national government had no power to levy taxes, regulate commerce, or maintain a standing army. Instead, it relied on voluntary contributions from the states, which were often inconsistent and insufficient. This structure, while intended to protect state autonomy, created a weak national framework that struggled to address the country's growing challenges. If making new laws was difficult, amending or changing the articles was a near impossibility. Article 13 declares, "Nor shall any alteration at any time hereafter be made in any of them, unless such alteration be agreed to in a Congress of the United States and be afterwards confirmed by the legislatures of every state." This meant that if the Articles of Confederation required an amendment to make it a better form of government, it would require unanimous consent from all 13 states. If even one state held out and refused to ratify a proposed amendment, it would fail to be added to the Articles of Confederation. This would make it nearly impossible to make any changes necessary to meet the changing needs of the Confederation as the nation evolved. The Articles of Confederation were a bold attempt at self-governance, but they ultimately fell short of creating a functional and unified nation. While the fear of centralized power was understandable, the extreme limitations placed on the national government rendered it ineffective in addressing national challenges. By learning from these early missteps, the framers were able to create a constitution in 1789 that better balanced power between the national and state governments, ensuring a more stable and unified country. And that's everything you need to know about the Articles of Confederation. You can click here for additional videos for AP US Government, and be sure to check out my videos on AP Macroeconomics and AP Microeconomics as well. If you found this video helpful, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more content on AP Government and Economics. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time on You Will Love AP Gov.